Hello, everybody. It is Manifesting with Meg. It is episode 82, Conversations with Extraordinary People. And today, our special guest is Mike Malatesta. He is the founder and podcast host of How'd You Do That? And our December theme tonight is Here's to the Good Life, which we got to hear more about in this particular life. I know nowadays Christmas is coming and everyone feels all the feels, all the anxiety, all that. So let's focus on the good life tonight and bring some more magic and miracles your way. This is a show about transformation, dreams, inspiration, true happiness, discovering bliss, and it's time to manifest the life of your dreams. Welcome. And we're ready to go. We're steps away from living the life you desire. Time to wake up to a universe packed with possibility. Before we begin, welcome, Mike. It's so awesome to have you, and on the heels of your huge book launch. So congratulations. Ownership is out in the world. So excited for you. And I'm so excited to be, helping the momentum go, because I know more people that get their eyes and ears on this book, it's going to help. And certainly at this time, everybody needs a boost of inspiration for sure. So welcome tonight. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you for having me, Meg. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long time.
I have to say, you're so chill and you're so at ease. It's going to chill me out. I'm really excited to have you on too, because I need a little bit of that in my life. So I welcome this
Yeah,
conversation.
thanks.
Before we begin, I would love for both of us to set our intention, and anyone out there as well in the audience, set their intention tonight to bring in lots of good things in this Let's Have a Good Life episode. And then I'd ask you to actually pick a number, which you've done already. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about what number you picked and how it synchronistically aligns to what magic happens during the interview. This is a show that is based upon my book. You can see it's like a little glary. My book, The Magical Guide to Bliss, 366 Insights to the Day that takes you through the year. Carpe diem in January. We're almost back to the beginning again. I can't believe it. My fourth season is almost coming to a completion. So excited, and I'm loving that you're one of my last interviews of the year. Certainly last but not least, and certainly saving the best for last for sure. Once again, I want everyone to remember that we're all here to manifest the life of our dreams, and we get to benefit from the extraordinary nature of those people that I get to interview on these wonderful, wonderful podcasts / Facebook Live / YouTube feeds. So make sure you follow me on all three of those sites and get all the information to continue and listen to over and over again. So now I get to tell you a little bit about my awesome guest. Mike loves supporting and helping entrepreneurs bring their dreams to fruition. My favorite thing as well. Break through those barriers and achieve massive success. He's lived in their shoes since he was 26, and he's been through and still on the roller coaster they are. So imagine all of you guys out there who in the entrepreneurial world, this is going to be a great episode for you, because even though you think that you're stuck, he's going to share his expertise, and he's experienced the excitement, pain, grit, and mistakes that come with every entrepreneurial journey. And he's going to share with all of you tonight how to help start, grow, and sell, most amazingly, the things. And in fact, his own journey, he himself as an entrepreneur has helped start, grow, and sell 2 amazingly successful waste management companies. One sold for mid 8 figures and the other sold for low 9 figures. So this guy knows what he's doing, and he has lots of knowledge to share with all of us tonight. He knows how hard, once again, it is to be an entrepreneur, and what a long shot it can be to achieve the success and freedom that are the entrepreneurial goals. He also knows what it takes to get there. So he's going to share with that, like I said, tonight. But I love the fact that he created this wonderful podcast called How'd It Happen? Over 200 episodes now. He gets to explore the stories, lessons, and wins with some of the most fascinating and successful people in the world. I had the pleasure of being on his podcast. It certainly was a delight to be interviewed, and certainly he is a very, very, very successful interviewer as well. Like I said, his podcast guests are experts in business, medicine, philanthropy, technology, academics, investing, health, and longevity, marketing, sales, self-improvement, and entrepreneurship, most of all. He has, this is where I get excited, because, the author in me comes out. Mike's new book is called The Ownership, How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, and is a philosophical memoir that reveals the secret to why so many entrepreneurs get stuck and how they can shift to get free once again. And once again, I'd like to say that this was a bestseller the first week out on Amazon. So you guys got to go there and pick it up and check it out. It tells the story of how he found himself in the valley of uncertainty, which I'm sure a lot of people out there today are experiencing as well. But the beauty of this story is it's a place where many entrepreneurs may end up getting stuck, confused, and feeling sorry for themselves like he did. He gets to tell you a story of how that changed for him. When the messenger arrived, he barely knew, wasn't looking for, showed up and put him on the path that eventually led him out of the valley and into a future that he owned and made his property. So I'm so excited to have, that's just wow. I just want to say, wow. I know so many people are here to, they're ready to listen to some of this magic that you offer, certainly to entrepreneurs out there, authors, everyone who wants to have that American dream come to fruition. And, once again, that you've been on this journey since you're 26 and many years going to do this, and then sharing that wealth of knowledge with others is just a blessing. Did I miss anything that you want to add? I had to breathe in the air.
Did you miss anything? That's so funny. No, that was a very, very gracious and thorough bio and introduction, Meg. Well done.
I will say this. I get more fascinated with my guests, I think, than anyone else. It's like, okay, what am I going to learn tonight? Because I always end up learning something pretty amazing every time I interview someone new. And, I go from, I run the gamut as well, but you really are quite a force of nature. And this is the month of magic and miracles. Tonight, like I said, our theme is Here's to a Good Life. And it's what a way to begin. The quote that we base this episode on is by Socrates. It's not life, but good life is to be chiefly valued. And we could all walk through our days numb and just experiencing just being alive by just getting through the day, or just dragging themselves. Like you said, the valley, what is it? The valley of uncertainty. Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds, if I watch one of those episodes for the Christmas of, the where the toys go to die, like the valley, the land of lost toys. That's what I feel like the land of lost entrepreneurs, this valley of uncertainty that we're speaking to. But I think that one of the beautiful things is that, even with that, when we shift and become grateful for those bits of wealth or knowledge that we get from other people who want to share that journey with us, then we are filled to the brim with appreciation. We can make a toast to that good life, seeing it differently through the eyes of another. So what are your thoughts on this? Coming out with your book, your great podcast, it's top rated. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll go with the podcast first, since that came before the book. So the podcast is called How'd It Happen? And you already sort of described what it's about. But, it started as really a journey of curiosity for myself, Meg. So around the time I sold my first business, 2015, I had these goals that I had established prior to that. And I was looking at them. I actually have them up. I still have them up in my office. And I was looking at what I had accomplished. These were long-term goals, not short-term goals. And, I had these goals to, do something creative, to write a number of books, to really spend time outside of the business working on with my own creativity, however limited it might be. And I wasn't making progress on it. And I started writing a blog, and I was putting a lot of time and effort into it. And it just, I didn't think it was making a difference, because people, for all the work I was putting into it and all what I thought was like magic, it just wasn't something that people were reading, because I hadn't established myself in that way, and I hadn't worked hard enough at it, right? I was expecting results before I was ready before I had to earn them, Let
me stop you for a second. When did you start your blog then? When was that something that you had, like, I'm going to do this?
That was right, 2015, 16.
Okay. And then when did you decide to do the podcast? What year was that?
Well, that was 2018. So,
okay.
So I was plodding along and just not getting, I just wasn't making the impact that I thought I would. And during that time, I started listening to podcasts, which I hadn't done prior to that. And it just kind of clicked with me. I really enjoyed it. I loved the learning aspect of it. I loved the exploration. And I thought to myself, well, this is maybe a way, maybe I could be okay at it, I thought. And also maybe this is a way for me to impact more people than writing the blog would. And so I got started to satisfy, to satisfy my own curiosity, and to like prove to myself that I could do something that was really different for me. I was, not that so much that way now, Meg, but I was a very private person for a long time. And I thought it would be silly of me to, get out there and have a podcast, for example, or silly of me to write a blog before I started doing that. And silly of me to even have a website of my own before I started doing that. And so slowly and surely I started to like peck away at these insecurities or whatever they were. But anyway, I got the podcast started, and 3 years later, I have over 200 episodes, and I've really narrowed in on my focus for it too. My mission for it is to, share stories of success, really dig in deep to get the clues to them, and inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in the people who are listening to it.
That's amazing. And, one of the things I like to say is that those things that we are seeking to bring out from others are those things that we are ourselves. So certainly tell me a little bit about what kind of success you've experienced now that you have over 200 plus episodes doing this, and you've gotten past your insecurities or perhaps your maybe fears of like, I'm an imposter, or this is not something because you come from a successful business model with the waste management. You sold 2 big companies for significant amount of money, and you just kind of shifted, right? You shifted.
Right. Well, those worlds, at least the first time before I did that, the first time, it was a very small world for me. I was living, so I was like, maybe I was a big fish in a small pond. I made my whole life about that business, and I just didn't do a lot of searching for a long time outside of these, I call them walls that I built around myself and around my business. And I just kind of stayed there. So getting out of it, and I was very comfortable there, but getting out of there, really with the podcast, for example, really stretched me and really challenged me, all in a good way, because it ultimately gave me great energy that I still get off of every episode. I get great energy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, obviously when you feel, revitalized after you're having these conversations, it's a good thing. It's like kind of like an internal, compass where it says you can keep going because this is something that feeds your soul rather than depletes you.
Right.
And, when you keep doing that, and certainly the title, How Did It Happen? How did that happen? That is a great, catchy, really, it reminds me of one of those old shows that,
What's my line?
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that. Like, how did it happen? And like, because it's like the conversational piece. So how did you come up with that?
Yeah. Well, I was looking for a catchy name, and I didn't want to do a scripted show. And so I thought to myself, well, here's what I'll do. I'll just have a show, and the only question I'll ask anybody that's scripted is the first question. How did it happen for you? Yeah. And everybody kind of has this idea of answering that, what I call the how did it happen question. But what's so great about it is really nobody knows how they're going to answer it until I ask the question. And then they just answer it, whatever comes to them, usually contemporaneously, because we don't like talk beforehand about it. And I love it because they go wherever they want to go with it, tell whatever story they want to tell. And because I don't care, it's just whatever whatever the guest tells me, it lays down the path for the rest of the conversation. And then we just go wherever that path leads, or wherever, the next question leads us off of that path, for example, or the next answer does. It's just a really fun way to do it.
So, it's interesting because I'm a manifestor. I believe you act as if things are already what you want them to be. So like, it's basically, you write your story, you tell the story of your life that you want to live in certain respects, when you write something, and one of the things that you had mentioned initially at the outset was that you set a whole series of goals, and, those things weren't coming to fruition yet, but at the same time, they were there. You have them up on the wall, even now, they're there. And the fact of the matter is, when you act as if, right, it's already you're already grateful for those things. It's already manifested and wonderful things show up. Then you can say, how did it happen? And I could even actually, kind of like, let me tell you a story of how it's going to happen. But at the same time, when you're sitting in that reality that it has unfolded wonderfully, how exciting is that? So are you ever a witness to like aha moments when you're talking to people where you just see like, oh my God, this is amazing?
Yeah, all the time. Not every episode, but all the time. And here's why. When I ask the how did it happen question, typically someone will answer that in a way that they're sort of used to answering questions from someone who's asking them about, their career or something. Mm-hmm. It's after they answer the question where it gets a little weird for everybody, because that's where sort of my curiosity kicks in, and I start going, like I said, wherever that they laid down a path, that's the path they wanted to lay down. That's fine. It's not the path I asked for. It's not the path I demanded. It's the path they laid down. And I just start going, oh, okay. And I go off the, wherever. What ends up happening is that we almost always get into something that, one, they weren't prepared to talk about. Not that they care talking about it, they just weren't prepared to talk about it. And then they just get lost in that part of the conversation. And it's very frequent where they'll be like, man, how did we get here? Like I haven't talked, I haven't talked about that in like forever, but how did you, that kind of thing.
You become a confessor. Let me confess to you.
But that's the stories that people want to hear, right? Yeah. Because the people that I have on, people that are around them, for example, might be like, oh, I could never be like Meg, for example. Look at her, boom, but her career and all this stuff, right? And well, turns out that Meg is just like you. Like, here's where we got. She was just like you at one point, and here's what she did, or here's the decision she made, or here's the messenger she met, or here's, the dream that she had, if I remember your dream, right?
Yes.
And that resonates with everybody, has that experience, right? So they'd be like, oh, well, if Meg was like that and I'm like that, I can probably get to where Meg is, right? It's not that monumental of a thing. It's not special.
So one of the things that you're saying is like you're giving permission to other people to recognize that they are special. Because I'm going to fight. Yes, I will say, and I like to believe I'm special because I honor the bray of my heart, as are you, right? But what you're saying is the path. It's not only for me. Your path is welcoming you to walk it. And that, in fact, is special specifically to that person or to, I love that. I love that notion, but you just have to start walking it, which is amazing because we're gonna jump on to this wonderful book. Now, this is what gets excited for me because this is your story, you telling it. And Berta is on here saying that I love this so much. And it's true. I love talking about to people where their dreams become the reality. Oh, thank you, Mike. Mike's special, but I do think he's too. So I think everybody shows up in this world with something beautifully wonderful that only is unique to themselves, as I would say is your story with ownership. Now tell me a little bit how that happened. How did it happen? I'm going to throw it back at you.
There you go. Turning the tables on.
I had to say it once. You knew that, right? You knew that was going to come.
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I do want to go back to something you've said a couple of times about story. So as I mentioned, my goal with the podcast is to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness that's in everyone. So I think you and I agree that there is greatness in everyone. The other thing that you've said that I completely agree with as well is your story is your story. You can tell it and believe it however you want to.
Yeah.
Right? Your future is a story. It's completely imagined and made up, just like everyone's is. So what story do you want to be telling? Anyway, I just wanted to go back to that because that was such a great thing that you said and that you believe.
Back to your point, may I respond to that because I have to. The fact that you just said there's greatness in everyone, I want to make sure everyone hears that because I don't think people go through life realizing that. that beautifulness, that, that story that you have waiting to tell. And the reality that I see from what you just said is so cool, because if you find yourself telling a very dramatic, angst-filled story, you're the narrator. You can shift it. And
Right.
now we get to this awesome story of yours. So tell me a little bit about that, like the ownership. Great title, by the way. And can you read the subtitle as well? It says,
Yeah, it's how getting selfish got me unstuck.
okay, so that's how getting
Which,
selfish got him unstuck. Think
right.
about those words. I love it. Go ahead. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the book came along as really, like I mentioned before, I had these goals, and writing books was one of my goals. And I started writing over a decade ago. And I would write and I would write and I would write. And in my mind, I would thought to myself, well, one of these days, this is all going to just come together. And it never did, or it wasn't coming together, Meg. So I decided in early 2020, or as a 2020 goal, and then I did it early 2020, that I was going to work with a firm that helps authors put an organizational structure and format together, because that's what I think I was missing. It turns out that that was exactly what I was missing. So I started working with this company called Scribe Media, and Scribe was a godsend for me, because they helped me really construct the outline and the framework and all of that for the book. And once I had that, I was able to make progress towards something that would actually become the book, in a way that I had never done before. So that's sort of how it got started. But the whole ownership, the book started out as sort of like, how do I make my future my property? How do I own it? How do I turn it into something real, like a physical asset?
Yeah.
And that's still kind of overarching what it's about. Like entrepreneurs, they, at least in my mind, they have this, they really need a go big mentality, because this is what most of them or us do is really tough work.
Hmm.
And it can really take a lot out of you, and you have to put a lot back into you in order for you to keep going and create this better future. So as I got into it, it just came down to like, hey, here's, between my own experience and what I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs do, there's 4 stages to this. There's a dream stage, a grind stage, a break stage, and then a breakthrough stage. And I basically take the reader through that journey, and I use my stories to help tell the lessons. But I say right off the bat, I'm not telling anybody, or any entrepreneur or anyone reading this, that you got to do it the way I did it, or this is how you do it, because I don't know all of those things. So what I do know is that, or what I do hope, and I think I know, is that by telling it, taking you through those 4 stages with my own experiences, the stories that I'm telling are ones that can resonate with you. Yours are going to be different, but you'll read it and you'll be like, oh yeah, I had this happen. And ultimately,
I like that.
I ultimately, what I'm trying to accomplish with this book, as I said, get entrepreneurs thinking big, but also get them to understand that even if you get off track, or find yourself in the valley, or find yourself stuck, or find yourself questioning, or find yourself just without direction, the thing I want everybody to understand is that where you are then is the result of a system that you designed perfectly to get you there. So which sounds like, oh, great, I designed a system to put me in a spot I don't want to be in, right?
Took me to the valley of uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God.
But once you can accept the fact that that's what you probably did, that's what you did, you can also accept the fact that if you design something to perfectly get you here, you can design something to perfectly get you somewhere else. And that's the breakthrough part of the
Yeah.
book. Like, how do you design something to get you to continue to make breakthroughs and continue to maximize capability and continue to grow and continue to make the future something that you want it to be and something that you own, and a story that you tell, to go back to what you've said a couple of times.
It's Mike is saying that how did it happen? An absolutely wonderful, open-ended question. Effective teachers use questions such as that, provoking thoughts, terrific responses, follow-ups, and wonderful conversations. I'm curious because how did it happen came before ownership, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm wondering, with regard to that whole process that you've designed, you were building kind of like your own fort, so to speak, the foundation, and then what comes on to top of that. Was that something that you had in mind at the outset? Like, let me try this and see how so it leads me to the next wonderful destination.
Well, you're giving more credit than I deserve. So I'm going to say, I knew that when I started,
you designed it yourself, right? You designed it.
Yeah,
So you get credit.
I didn't know where I would go when I started the podcast. I just knew that if I started it and I kept doing it, and this is a good lesson for about like everything in life. If I started it, believed in it, and kept doing it, sooner or later, there's going to be something magical that comes from it, because effort is necessary in order for reward.
I like that. I'm going to put it in the feed. Effort is necessary if you want a reward, right? Okay, so go on, keep going. Tell me about this messenger. How did this, is that Scribe? Is that Scribe?
Oh, no.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
So, my partner passed away about 10 years into our business, and he died as a result of being badly burned in a fire at one of our plants. So he's it was horrible. So anyway.
Wow, sorry.
3 days later, he died, and that was sort of like, for me, the culmination of what I call the grind period of my journey. And it's what dropped me into this valley. And I just I just I just didn't know what to do. I just didn't know where to go. I just wanted someone to come along and lift me out of there, or tell me everything would be okay, Meg, or show me what I should do. And this morning, while I was in that valley, I went to a breakfast meeting at the Chamber of Commerce, and I knew who the speaker was going to be. Johnny Vasallo was the speaker, and Johnny owned and still owns one of the, top end steak places in Milwaukee where I live. And so, it's going to be an interesting story of an entrepreneur. And I was there for that. And he started talking about, his career and his history and growing up in the restaurant business and all of that. And it, that was fine. And then he just sort of, got kind of quiet, and, he started to admit that, he was struggling with, what to do and how to grow and how to be a good leader, how to be a good entrepreneur. And he started talking about this recommendation that a friend of his gave him about this program called the Strategic Coach, that is an entrepreneurial training program. And he said, my friend told me that, if I join this, I'll and I do what they tell me to do, I'll have more free time. I'll be able to take more vacation than I've ever taken, and I'll make more money than I've ever made. And I'll feel like I'm doing the work I'm supposed to be doing as an entrepreneur. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, when he said that, I felt like I was the only person in the room. So just he and I.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down, what he said, and I went back to my office and I looked it up, and I signed up right away. And then I started going to that program. And that program was one of many, but one of the first and most significant things that really started to turn my life around and show me that there was a way out of this valley. So I called Johnny my messenger, because, when your brain is open to something, your eyes and your ears are looking for it. And that morning, my brain was open to something. I was looking for help, and he came along.
Wow.
And he was there for a reason, I think.
Well, I do love that you say it's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's kind of what comes
Yeah.
to mind as you're speaking. One of the things that I think is also very significant is that something very profound had to happen in your life for you to like start really looking at it and saying, okay, I'm
Yeah.
lost. I'm generally lost right now and I need something. And you're kind of looking, what you seek, you will find, right? And at the same time, your whole life changed from that one connection with Johnny, who the messenger, and then you have a book to show for it now, and you have a podcast to show, and you have successful businesses that you've had, and you sold to show for it. So one of the things I do appreciate, thank you so much for sharing that. I just felt, it's really important that when you are in the valley of uncertainty, that maybe you are really gentle with yourself, and certainly if things resonate with you, just respond in kind, like say, okay, like you said, it was meant to happen for you. I always love to ask people for their inspirational quotes, and you gave me ones from your book, which I even feel even more excited about because these are specific to your story. And the first one we have is entrepreneurs are some of the most special people in the world. Powerful, optimistic thinkers, delusional, yes, but also caring, hardworking, and fearless. Tell me a little bit about what this means to you.
Well, I like I said earlier, the work of being an entrepreneur is extremely difficult, and um, it like when you look around. So just look around your neighborhood or your city or whatever, and look at the buildings, and look at the universities, and look at uh, the food pantries, and look everywhere, and go behind, see the names, or ask, where did who's funding these kinds of things. Well, most of the time, or a lot of the time, it's entrepreneurs or companies that were started by entrepreneurs. They may be owned by bigger companies now. And so that's like the payoff, right? And very, very few get to that point where they can make that payoff, but everybody gets into it really to have a huge impact on their team, on their community, on the business, the industry that they're in, and sometimes on the world. And I just think that
I like that.
that's a journey that deserves my support, and it's a journey that deserves some recognition. And a lot of times people look at entrepreneurs and they say, well, wouldn't it be nice? And yeah, it would. Wouldn't it be nice? And but it's there for everybody. It's just that only a certain percentage will do it, Meg, because
Yeah.
yeah. So my mission, now, having had some of the good things happen to me that I have, is to do all I can to support and grow the entrepreneurial world, because yeah, I don't know I don't know professionally how I could have a bigger impact than doing that.
Well, I love that you put delusional.
Yeah.
I love that you have that word in there because you have to believe, like Mike says, you got to believe. You have to be so much so married to this beautiful vision that you have, like the story, like we were talking about before, that you want to tell, that that hard work and that fearlessness, you're not going to give up before it happens.
Yeah.
And certainly maybe revamp your, like you said, revamp your design perhaps, and shift out of that, but yet at the same time, go the course, stay the course. This is not meant for the weak at heart. And here's another wonderful quote that I picked from what you gave me is, when we started our business, our goal was to survive. We accomplished that. We made money, built a great team, and had stuff like new houses and fancy pickup trucks with naughty personalized license plates, but it came at a high price. Please tell me what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, what I mean is like the I told you what happened to my partner. We had so we had a lot of good things happen to us, Meg, but we had a lot of things that you just wouldn't want to go through or have to deal with. But you do. So you pay a price no matter what you're gonna do in life. I think there's a high price to pay for approaching life like go to the right school, find a safe job,
Right.
save your money, right? It's a total opposite. That's non-delusional, but
Yeah.
there's still a high price. There's
Because
still
your
a high.
dreams die with you. I love that
That's
quote by Wayne Dyer, don't let the music die with you.
yeah,
I find that's a price that I certainly wasn't willing to make at that point.
yeah,
I just don't want to be regretful at the end of my days. And you're right, it's the other end of, when you have an entrepreneurial or your own business, your priority has to be sometimes that business, to what end at the same time, right? And you're, like
sure,
I said, you lost your partner, but I think it's very important to have a good perspective on that, because it's like, I guess it's questioning what it is that you want, and that maybe is a little bit to the point of how getting selfish got you unstuck. And I would love for you to explain why that's your subtitle in your book as well.
sure, yeah, because it's a horrible word, right? Selfish. Like,
Well,
no,
I don't think so. I think
no,
self-full. In positive psychology, they shift it to self-full instead of
yeah,
selfish,
okay,
because maybe that's a little less palatable, like less harsh. But I don't think it's a bad word. I think you got to put your mask on. You got to breathe. But anyway,
yeah.
you can speak to that.
Well, sure. I chose to use that word very intentionally because some of the high price that I paid, I want other people to avoid. And like I said, all the high prices I paid were self constructed, right? They were engineered by me, but that's just because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that there were options. I didn't know um, that there were resources. I hadn't met Johnny,
Yeah.
um, before. But to get to the selfish part, uh, for up until Butch's death and even after that, I thought that my job as the leader and the entrepreneur was to be selfless, meaning always put everyone else's needs in front of mine. I thought that's what a good leader was supposed to do. And you know what? It worked for a while, Meg. It was what the business really needed when we started it, and probably for a long time after that. But ultimately, what I discovered was that being selfless, at least the way I was defining being selfless, was really becoming an excuse for me not to do my job,
Oh,
not to be the visionary, not to
mm,
understand what's most
I get that.
important for the business, not to look at myself and say, well, geez, if I'm not my best, if I'm not operating at my best, how could I possibly expect our team to be operating at its best? And so that's when that's when it dawned on me that in order for me to do my job, to be the leader, to create a future that was bigger than anything that we've accomplished so far, I had to get selfish about what I wanted that to actually be.
Mm.
And the good thing was, once I did that, took the time to understand that, um, it opened up a lot of capability. Like, first of all, I was doing the job I was supposed to be doing, really the only job that I could be doing that no one else in the company could be doing. And then second, it gave me the confidence, once I had established that, that that the future is not something that's just going to happen to me. It's something that I am going to do my very best to self-direct. And then finally, once I sort of had that idea and notion and belief system built into me, I could communicate that with our team, and I could make the changes that needed to be made in order for us to accomplish and make that future our own. And lastly, once I had all of those, I could then become a better selfless leader, because I knew that I was taking care of me first, and I knew that would help me show up every day the best I could possibly be.
I love that. I love that what you just said, because I think it's really important that, back to the point of our theme today, here's to the good life. Well, if if you're completely depleted and you're a mess and you're like, serving everyone, but you're like, crawling on the floor, to your destination, that's not the good life.
Yeah,
And
right.
certainly, like, what is that going to lead to? Just burnout and, not something that a visionary would embrace. And, I do love this one as well. The reality that is that my future is a product of my imagination. I can want whatever I want, and every inch of progress is a new sprout of capability. And to the last thing that you said, when you're not selfish to take care of yourself first, then you cannot engage your imagination because you're too foggy and you're too exhausted and you're all the twos that are not so great, that high price that you don't want to have to pay because you want to experience life in a really different way. So please tell me to
Right.
this quote. It's so great. I loved, I'm a big fan of using your imagination to, kind of create the life we're all supposed to be, creators in this world. So
Yeah, well, this kind of gets to what I mentioned you had said a couple of times. I mean, whose story are you telling? What is, so the future is completely imagined. You don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be, right? So I can either say, well, I have no control over my future because it's just going to happen and there's nothing I can do about it. Or I can say, well, maybe I can't control everything about my future, but I can control a lot of it. I can predict a lot of it. I can control a lot of it, and I can move towards what I want once I know what it is. Where if I don't know what it is, or I don't spend any time on that, I'm going to move to whatever it, being the future, wants me to. And before I came to this realization, I was really, in that valley, I was really thinking that my story, the story of my past, would be the story of my future, because why wouldn't it be otherwise, So it was kind of a, woe is me approach to this that, is just crap, right? I mean, that's just a story I was telling myself, no different than the new story that I wanted to tell myself. So that's what I mean by imagination. It's
Well,
just you.
I'm really curious. Would your former self be really surprised at where you are today in this world and what you're doing today and how you're showing up today? Is that something just 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you would be like, wow, I did it? Or would you be like, this is nothing that I even imagined until I actually met this messenger?
I don't know the answer to that, because maybe there would have been a different messenger that came along. Um, I want to tell myself, here's the story I want to tell myself. I would have found the answer no matter what. But you know what, Meg?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? That's so true. It's so true. And then this one, entrepreneurs hate systems. This is interesting because I read this and I was like, but systems make your company better, like oxygen, they're required for you to live. And I will say this, after I resigned from my own job, I like rebelled against any structure. I was like, no, I am not going to wake up at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock at that, and do what I needed to do to make sure I was out of the house in court by 7:30. Like, no, I was like, no, I was tired and I was burned out. But the reality is, to get done what I needed to get done, I needed a system. I needed a system that I could follow, a routine that I could engage so that I could have accountability. Tell me a little bit of what this means for you, because I first saw it and I was like, oh, the rebellious part of me came like flaring out.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm like, yeah, well, she's right. It's right?
Well, yeah, we all confuse this word called freedom with being not needing any systems, right? I rebel against systems because I want freedom. And here's the thing: you want freedom as an entrepreneur, or maybe in a lot of other things as well. Systems get you freedom.
Yeah.
Lack of systems get you frustration.
Yeah.
Lack of systems get you, trap you in small thinking. Lack of systems make you the hero every day, and that feels great until it feels like terrible. Lack of systems make the people who work with you, or if you call it with you or for you, it makes them stop growing. It makes them, or it makes them leave because they don't want something where it's designed that nobody knows what they're doing unless you're around, or unless so and so is around, right? So yes, you think of so many solopreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Why do they start a business? Because they're mad at their boss and they think they can do better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great reason to get started. And then now what? What are you going to do different than the person that you're rebelling against and starting your own business? If you're going to just do it the same way. So anyway, yeah, systems, bureaucracy, terrible. Systems, great.
Well, I do love that. And that's also like my theme for this next year is magical connections. And I do think that when we collaborate, certainly the creation of our imagination can come to fruition a lot more quickly, and we can
Yeah.
enable each other. We can build each other up. So I think that that also is a system. We just have to think about, so this is my restating the systems that work for me in a way that's palatable for me, so I don't rebel against it and becomes more fun, because systems seem so disciplined, like you have like going to like having to show up for elementary school when you're like going through, you're just like, oh, let me graduate other, and then getting into college, and college is like you get to choose your own destiny, by classes you take and whatever, what for. You can still do the college in a company if you just become somewhat creative and become accountable in a way that makes it more of a good life, and rather than a have to, you get to. And that's how I see your journey unfold, and with the how to do that podcast. And it's funny because even what Mike says here, to discover you have to search, and I think that is also a part of the process. Putting your systems into place and then searching to see what really resonates and works for you, I think is really important as well. One of the things I love about the show is I get to have conversations with you. Your extraordinariness, right, comes through. And I know when everyone's looking toward 2022 and they're like, I know we heard said initial, I get excited about every day I get to live, but it's really kind of fun to have those goals to reach for, so that we can use our imagination to better ourselves to that greatness you spoke to. What kind of things have you used, other than obviously this wonderful gentleman, Johnny, but in your life that you've adopted that help you move forward and have accountability towards your goals that you still have listed on your wall?
Well, having them is a good start. Just having them, and really, I just break it down into real simple stuff. So I have, not that I do it all the time the right way, but I break it down into simple stuff. If I have a big goal, I have to have a lot of smaller goals to support that big goal. I can't make a leap from 0 to 1,000 in a world where I have never done a leap from 0 to 1,000 before. So
That's true.
so I have to go, what's comfortable for me? Is it 0 to 1, 0 to 10, 0 to 100? And I just have to break it down into those steps, and every step gets me closer towards the goal. So that's just the way that I choose to approach things. The other thing, I guess, that habits are like make or break, so you may not have wanted to get up at the time you had to go to be in court and stuff anymore after it, but I bet you developed another habit to support where you did want to go.
Yeah.
And habits are just really important. Having good habits that keep you going from that 0 to 1, or that 0 to 10, or that 0 to 100 on your way to your 0 to 1,000 goal is really important. They support your progress or lack of.
I love that you say that, and I want to make sure that that is clear. Even Tammy, Pastor Rick saying, this is fascinating. I have a system for every aspect of my life, especially for raising kids. The thing is, it's a lot. We have all a lot on our plates generally. Yeah. Yes. And the reality is that some things that, you deciding because you chose this path, you have to make sure that your kids aren't like spiraling into the pits of hell or Dante's Inferno. Who knows? That's clearly, but as incredible as we all are, to your point, the incremental hits of life, like for instance, what you just said, that I love to break things down to those small, because I need the endorphin hit that I accomplished something. I need to come back and say, yay.
Yeah, right. Celebrate.
Yeah, because otherwise, what's the point? I'm like getting things done, and I'm just like, okay, that happened, move on. Like there's something validating about celebrating the fact that you have a good habit in place and you've actually executed according to what you always dreamed to do. Back to manifesting, and how we learn about ourselves in the process. You're definitely a success. You're certainly extraordinary. I mean, I've had the pleasure of being able to speak to you in different capacity in your own show, and then here, obviously, I'm very grateful that you decided to show up. But one of the things that I really do admire with you is that you have begun to manifest things in your life that are showing up, and showing up in a way that they collaborate with other people. So now that we're moving into the 2022 season, and I love the fact that you break things down to habit form that you want. Like, I love habits that I actually want to keep, and like some of them I'm like, I'm not so sure about, but you got to brush your teeth every morning.
Well, you only keep the habits you want, Meg. I'm
True.
just gonna tell you
I
that.
love that. Listen to that, everybody. You only keep the habits of the ones you want. And it's true, because they actually kind of align to your life. I love that you pointed out. So in this wonderful season, that's, the holiday season, awe-inspiring magic and miracles, what are you prioritizing today in the present moment in your life?
Well, today I'm prioritizing the book, and getting that out there, or getting awareness of it out there to as many people as I can, because I think it's important, and I think it's valuable, and I'm proud of it, and I want to I want to see it inspire, activate, or maximize greatness in other people. So that's what I'm focused on right now. As we move into 2022, I'm going to write another book in 2022. I don't know what that's going to be just yet. I'm going to continue to work with my podcast. I'm going to continue to work with my investment community, and who knows?
Who knows? That sounds exciting, because I guess the valley of uncertainty, you just shifted it on its heel and made it valley of possibility. And so that
Yeah.
kind of
Oh, nice.
excited, right? Because I feel like maybe last week you would have talked to me and I was like, oh, the uncertainty is just driving me crazy. And then for me, because I'm such a manifestor, I have to shift to possibility, because
yeah.
I have to stay in my lane. And that's a really effective lane for me, to be with that possibility, because that gets me excited. And that is what empowers my imagination. And I have to point this out, because it's what we've been talking about tonight. There's no such thing as a good or bad story. Stories just are. We decide what our stories mean. I love this, and I couldn't end tonight without you explaining this to everyone who might be listening, about what that is, what that means for you as you're telling your story with ownership, and as you're sharing other people's stories with How Did It Happen podcast.
So 2 weeks ago, this is really interesting. So 2 weeks ago, I was at a CEO group meeting, and we had a speaker named Todd Musselman, and he was one of the best. I know people say this all the time, but he was one of the most best, most impactful people that I've ever had the pleasure to be in a room with.
Wow.
And he said something like, "When's the first time you ever thought about what somebody thought about you?"
Oh, wow. That's a pretty intense question.
Yeah. And he's like, what were you? Maybe 2, 3 years old, right? Before you were 2 or 3 years old, you never asked yourself the question, well, what would somebody think of me if? And it's at that point when you start thinking about what other people think about you, where your story can get all messed up.
I love that.
Right?
Thank you so much for that tonight. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Say that again, because I think that's so important that everyone hears it.
Yeah. Well, when you start thinking about what other people are thinking about you, that's when your story can get all messed up, because you believe that your story is someone else's. It's not yours.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. That's freedom right there. You just freed yourself from someone else's good opinion, right? That's so profound. And at the end of your story, well, not even at the end, at the beginning of this new chapter, because you're now promoting your memoir, your story is being shared beyond, and certainly outside of entrepreneurial groups. What is it that you're deciding that your story means?
So great question. And you know what? I don't know. So I know what my story is and what it means right now. I know the story that I'm telling myself about my future, but I don't know, that's like, to me, it's very fluent, right? Because I could run into someone tomorrow who has some idea for me or has some wisdom for me,
Yeah,
like I just
yeah,
described. And then all of a sudden I adapt my story a little bit, or I adjust it, or I shift it a little bit. Um, because that's part of the journey too.
love
Like,
it.
yeah, I don't abandon it,
Yeah.
but I continue to modify it.
It's like the flapping of a butterfly wings and how it changes
Oh
the
yeah.
chapter. Yeah, I have to say, I had to add it because it came to mind.
Yeah.
And Berta's saying this is a powerful invitation. And I love how she phrased that. Great question. It's a powerful invitation, what you were saying, you know, to start defining your story by what you want it to mean rather than by others
Right.
want for you. So that takes us back to your intention for this evening, which gets me
Hmm.
really excited. Going back to what was your intention for this interview tonight?
Well, my intention, is this where I say from the book, right?
This is what you say your
Yeah.
intention, and whatever, and then of course you read, you match it to the book the page I sent you.
So my intention tonight was to celebrate a small win on my journey. Um, so this morning, Amazon posted the 50th review of my book this morning.
Yay! Congratulate! That's huge. That's huge.
Hey,
That's
yeah,
celebrate. That's huge.
thank you. So I wanted to celebrate that, and that's why I chose 50.
That's awesome.
For,
I love it.
for yeah.
That's great. I love it. Synchronistic. I love it. So tell me,
So that
what
was my
was
intention.
Yeah, so what did it say on as we celebrate tonight? What does page 50 say? And I always allow, whatever you want to read from it that really speaks to you, that, matches that intention.
Yeah, so I'll read a couple of sentences from it. Today is a wondrous day that holds infinite riches. Are you ready to experience all it has to offer? If so, be present to the people with whom you come into contact. They may offer you wisdom to catapult your dreams. Well,
That
that
sounds
sounds like our conversation,
totally does. It
right?
don't, like, because you were paying attention to these wonderful individuals who crossed your path and it changed your life.
Right.
And it's so funny. I get goosebumps when I hear how things match up in life, and I don't believe in coincidences. I am very much a synchronistic person. So I personally think how I manifest, like what you're doing, paying attention to those messengers or those words of wisdom, or like what you said tonight, so much wisdom that can be shared with so many, that would help us all getting in alignment with our own dreams and aspirations, rather than just kind of being in that valley of uncertainty that you spoke to at the outset, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. So that's awesome. I find that just like so credible, especially as we wrap up tonight. And one of the things that I certainly, for this incredible journey, and how, like, I'll show in the stream again, your wonderful book and how you brought that to fruition. Your 50th review today. It's huge. I mean, that's wonderful. Celebrating with you tonight, you putting your story out there, that vulnerable place where you can help impact the lives of at least 50 people who reviewed it. I'm sure there's going to be so many more before that book. It's never over. The journey for your book has begun. The journey for your podcast continues. And certainly your imagination knows no bounds as long as you set your systems in place that empower it. And I love that. I laugh because Berta's on today, and she was one of my first business coaches, and she would tell me, you need systems. And I'm like, I don't want systems, but you know
Yeah.
what? The reality is it does make life easier, and things do fall into place better, and becomes less frustrating. So I love that you pointed that out tonight. So before we end tonight, please share with us a final bit of inspiration before I can tell all these wonderful people where to go find you in this world.
A final bit of inspiration. Well, I think I'm going to go with the theme of the evening. Stories matter, and the story that you tell yourself matters more than any story that anyone's going to tell you about yourself.
Hmm.
So just think about that, and you know, think about your future. Think about what you want to own, When I say own, I mean take ownership of your future. Make it something that you can pick up, like this phone. It's property. It's not just this sort of nebulous thing out there. And then tell yourself a story about how you're going to pursue it, how you're going to pay for it, how are you going to take ownership for it, and then do it.
I love that. Taking ownership for your future is such an empowering thing for anyone who's listening, because we don't have to sit back and wait for someone to tell us what to do, but we can take ownership for our decisions today with those systems we put into place. And also we can shift into that selfish way to take care of ourselves so that we get unstuck. And I think that's really important, especially, when we're all maybe drained at the end of the year and whatever and whatnot. And, Berta's saying, thanks for this. You have amazing stories. Appreciate your sharing. And I really do appreciate you sharing your story with us, and certainly, matching up with my vision for my own trilogy. And I always love to share that at the end of the day. What I will say is everybody out there who wants to connect with Mike, he's on LinkedIn. It is Mike Malatesta. His name is Malatesta, his last name. You can find him there. He also has Instagram. He's on YouTube. His podcast is How'd It Happen? It's all over podcast format. So certainly Apple is one of the podcasts you can go to. He has his own webpage, Mike Malatesta, MikeMalatesta.com. You can find him there. Certainly Twitter is a place you can find him. Facebook is a place you can find him. He's everywhere. Did I miss any other places that we can find you? I don't know if they want to come and reach out to you and grab onto you and, engage your wisdom, but certainly you are a visionary for other entrepreneurs. And I want to make sure that I stress that he really offers a lot of wonderful space for those conversations to happen. And I encourage you all to connect with Mike, because he really is a breath of fresh air, and you're going to love his ownership. It's ownership of ownership. Let's go there. And
okay. I'll take it.
Take that. So, without further ado, is there anything else you want to share with everybody before we go tonight?
I just appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for having me on, Meg. And for the people who are on and are interested, it makes me feel great.
That's awesome.
You do a wonderful job as well. Thank you.
You are very inspiring. And like I said, my intention always is to jump on and learn something new for my own journey. And I certainly have gained a lot of wisdom from you tonight. So thank you so much, Mike. And I want to tell everybody, remember, we're all here as deliberate creators of our lives, going back to the point where he says, take ownership of your story. I'm going to add that to my spiel. Dream big and let us all together raise the vibration of this planet so that we can all live our bliss, because we have to start loving ourselves exactly where we are. And that's the selfish component, so that we can all reach out and continue to spread love, being bold and being an awakener, like Mike says, and time to manifest the life of our dreams. So enjoy the rest of your December, everybody. Make it a December to remember, inspiring magic and miracles, and reach out to Mike today and start reading his stuff, listening to his podcast. You're really going to really thank me. So it's my gift to you during the holiday season. And without further ado, thank you, Mike Malatesta, for your wonderful interview tonight with your wonderful wisdom. And you're sharing us the story behind the ownership and your podcast. How'd you do that? There's so much out there. If you love Magical Guide to Bliss, go get your copy today. You can even email me and I will give you a signed copy. We'll discuss later. Anyway, with that being said, happy holidays, everybody. Thank you again, Mike, and have a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody.